Good morning, everyone. I'm Lyndall Stout. We're here at the Oklahoma State Fair, and we have another great show lined up for you today on SUNUP. Fall armyworms are active in Oklahoma wheat fields. Find out your options if you've already planted or if you will soon. Plus, an update on Oklahoma's pecan crop and why different diseases are showing up this year. And it's our favorite spot. Agtropolis is full of activities again this year at the Oklahoma State Fair. Grab that fresh cup of coffee because an all-new SUNUP starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. We dive right in this morning with Dr. Ashleigh Faris, our OSU Extension entomologist, talking about fall armyworms, which really seem to be everywhere right now.
Yeah, we've had a nice cool spring. We've also had a kind of a cooler summer than usual, and we've had a lot more rain than what we typically do, all of which bring about really happy grasses and other types of crops that they can happily feed on and move readily into our winter wheat.
So it is planting time in Oklahoma, always an exciting time. So let's kind of divide this up into two questions. First of all, for those who have already planted and are kind of seeing like what we see now in this field with, sprouting and the beginning stages of the crop, what do they need to be doing?
So our producers that are having their wheat emerge, to get a strong, healthy stand, we want to be sure that they're actively scouting, and I would say regularly scouting. That means more than just once a week, especially when our wheat is really, really small. This is just because those fall armyworms can take hold pretty quickly and cause damage and stand loss pretty quickly as well. So what I suggest for now is scouting in the evenings, maybe every other day. Just walk your fields, especially at the borders, any kind of edges where you have grasses or weeds. Be looking at the base of the plants that are coming up and look for some really, really small worms that might possibly be moving around, even some small egg masses too. We want to be sure that you're catching them while they're small because they're going to be a lot more easier to manage before they get into those larger, more voracious worms.
And then for folks who haven't planted yet, they have a little bit more of an advantage or more options, but do they need to be scouting too?
So for our producers that haven't yet planted, the first thing is if you have the time, make sure that your field and the areas around your field are weed free for at least 2 weeks. That way they don't have anything to move from and then directly into what you're planting. If you have the option, something to think about would possibly be an insecticide seed treatment, but I know treating seed does take time and sometimes you need to get that done a little more in advance. But if that is something that you're going with, be sure that that insecticide seed treatment is actually labeled for our fall armyworms. That's because not all insecticide seed treatments are going to be the same. They work better for some lepidopteran pests, which are going to be our moth and our worm kind of pests, but they're not all effective for the fall armyworm.
In terms of management, what are the specific options for producers?
So when our treatable threshold is going to be is when you have about 3 to 4 larvae per foot of row and you see some signs of damage. So those smaller worms, they're going to cause window painting on the leaves. When they're feeding, they're going to scrape off that top leaf material, and so you might see some transparent pieces of those leaves. As the worms get larger though, then you're going to start to see evidence of whole leaf feeding, and that's when they can really become an issue. In terms of management options, we suggest producers select a product with an active ingredient such as chlorantraniliprole, lambda-cyhalothrin, or cyfluthrin. I do want to note that not all products are going to be labeled for fall armyworms when we even think about our foliar insecticide applications, so be sure to always read the label, be sure to always apply at a labeled rate, and also make sure you're paying attention to your pre-harvest interval or the time in which you're going to allow grazing to occur if you're grazing on your operation.
And do they have some natural predators in the insect world?
There are some natural predators that are out there. These are going to be things like our lady beetle larvae and our lady beetle adults, our syrphid larvae. So sometimes you might see some green lacewings around too. Their larvae are also going to be predators. And then really also those parasitic wasps. So they're going to come by, they're going to lay their eggs inside of the armyworm, parasitize it to where their offspring are feeding on it from the inside out, and they emerge out of those armyworms too. So anything we can do to promote those beneficials being around would be really useful. There are some insecticide options that are going to be more soft on beneficials than on others.
We're of course talking about production ag in this segment today, but homeowners are also seeing fall armyworms, me included, in my neighborhood. So you and the team put that all together in a new newsletter, ePest Alert.
Yes, we did. So we have a pest alert in which we talked about management for turf, as well as also pasture and preparing for this winter wheat where we might be seeing them moving into next.
Okay, great. I'm going to check that out and circulate it around my neighborhood. How does that sound?
Thanks, Lyndall.
Ashleigh, thanks so much for your time today. And for a link to the ePest Alert that Ashleigh mentioned, you know where to go, sunup.okstate.edu.
And just a reminder about the upcoming Cotton Field Day. This event will be on September 25th at the Southwest Research Station in Altus. Topics will include cotton variety trials, weed control, irrigation, and much, much more. If you are interested in this event, just scan this QR code right here to register.
The 4-H Forestry exhibit is the perfect place to continue our conversation about this year's pecan crop in Oklahoma. Last week we got an update from Becky Carroll, and this week we get an update from our new horticulture pathologist, Dr. Mustafa Jibrin.
We're here now with Mustafa Jibrin, OSU Extension plant pathologist, and we talked with Becky about pecans last week, and now we're going to focus more on pecan scab and diseases. But before we get started, Mustafa, this is the first time you've been on the show. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing at OSU.
Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Mustafa Jibrin. I'm the horticulture plant pathologist in the Department of Entomology and Plant Pathology at OSU. So my work deals with a lot of horticultural plants, from pecans to grapes, to vegetables, to other fruits and ornamentals. So I look at diseases and how to manage them.
We're glad to have you with us. So what's going on with pecan scab this time of year?
Yeah, so this year is a pretty different year for pecan scab. Typically because of, like last year, we have more drier climate and weather system, so we had low pecan scab pressure. Unlike this year, there's a lot of rainfall, and places that typically wouldn't have much of pecan scab are having it, especially here. So last year we didn't see much of pecan scab on our varieties that we know that are resistant to pecan scab. But this year we see some of the cans are having pecan scab. We have a trial going on here where we do a lot of fungicide spray application treatments to see which fungicide provide better cover or protection against pecan scab. But yet, in all our trials, we still see high pecan scab disease pressure. And this is across the state.
So why are we seeing more pecan scab in places that we don't normally see it in?
It could be due to several things. As I said earlier, the rainfall was high, humidity is high, so this is the perfect condition for pecan scab or any disease at all. We've seen, besides pecan scab, we've seen a lot of diseases. So it's the weather this year, the rainfall this year provide a perfect condition for pecan scab to really develop. And this is a pathogen. The pathogen that causes pecan scab is called Venturi effusa, and it has both sexual and asexual stages. And this kind of condition creates the right scenario for it to continue to reproduce and have these multiple cycles come in as you wouldn't have in a typical year.
Okay. So what other diseases are we seeing besides pecan scab?
Yeah, so normally, if you don't have pecan scab pressure, you don't spray that much. You have few sprays, and other diseases like anthracnose, mostly anthracnose and other dieback and so on, can be more because most of the pecan spray program takes care of the other disease. So the typical fungicide you're going to spray against pecan scab is going to take care of anthracnose, it's going to take care of neophysicum and other leaf spots that comes on. you're going to have those being controlled. But if you don't have much pecan scab, then you don't spray much and those diseases build up. But this year, because of the condition, and all of them develop. Yeah, so you have a lot of anthracnose building up, you have a lot of dieback, and several kinds of leaf spots are kind of showing their face. But the good thing is, if you stay on top of your pecan scab spray program, you should be able to take care of those other diseases.
So are these diseases kind of more prevalent in different areas of the state?
Oh yeah, definitely. So typically, as I said earlier, typically in this part of central Oklahoma, we don't see much of pecan pressure. But this year is high a little bit. But if you go down south, you're gonna see much more pecan scab pressure, or even somewhere in the southeastern part of the state, you're gonna see much more pecan diseases, and not even pecan scab alone. One thing I want to say though is, at this point, there's nothing you can do. The pecan scab spray season is over. Okay. So it's typically from March to August. So whatever is there now, if you still want to control it, I'm not going to say no, but you have to just wait till maybe after your harvest. Then you can spray to reduce the inoculum against the upcoming season next year.
Yeah, and if producers have more questions about managing their pecan trees, they can reach out to their OSU Extension offices too.
Yeah, you can reach out to OSU Extension office, but also more importantly, if it's pecan disease, I would want you to send your samples to the Plant Disease and Insect Diagnostic Lab. Typically, it comes to my desk after everything is done, and you can also call me or email me. My information is on the website. We have a pecan team managed by Becky, and you will see my name and my email and everything there on the website.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Mustafa, for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hello, Oklahoma. Emma White here with your weekly Mesonet Weather Report. With winter wheat on the verge of planting in Oklahoma, I thought I would spend a few minutes today discussing the importance of the weather conditions for the success of the winter wheat crop. Winter wheat is a unique crop because it is planted in the fall, lies dormant in the winter, and then finishes its growing season in the spring. Winter wheat is one of the main crops in Oklahoma, so its success is very important to this state. This is a map of available soil moisture in the top 4 inches of the soil, and we like these numbers to stay above 50%. So, there is ample soil moisture in most of the state for the germination and emergence if winter wheat is planted in these soil conditions. However, for southwest Oklahoma, if farmers plan to plant winter wheat, the dry soil could be an issue for best germination and emergence setup. In that case, farmers may dust in the seed at a slightly shallower depth and hope for rain a little later. Another weather condition important for winter wheat success is soil temperature. Here is a map of the current soil temperatures in the state at 2 inches deep. The soil temperature should not be too high. High soil temperatures can linger if the summer hangs on into September. Generally speaking, winter wheat germinates best once the soil temperature stays below 77 degrees Fahrenheit. According to this map, temperatures at 2 inches in the soil are starting to get down to the best planting temperature range, but areas in the southwest are still in the very high 70s. If farmers are planting winter wheat in hotter soil temperatures, usually they'll plant less heat-sensitive varieties. Next week, we'll talk about Mesonet tools useful for tracking winter wheat. This map shows the 90-day precipitation accumulation for the state. We see lower values of inches of precipitation in the southwest and panhandle as compared to the central and eastern Oklahoma. This is typical behavior, so let's instead look at how normal this behavior is for each area, at least for the last 2 weeks. This map is a percent of normal precipitation from September 1st through September 16th as compared to the 30-year average for those 2 weeks. It turns out that parts of the Panhandle have actually received more than normal precipitation for that area these last 2 weeks. But those areas are fairly small compared to the overall red on the map. The redder colors indicate that most of the state has actually received lower than normal precipitation in these first 2 weeks of September. This is particularly acute in the central part of the state. Now, let's look forward. The outlook for the 6 to 10 day temperature is forecasting likely above average temperature for Oklahoma this coming week. On the other hand, the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook is forecasting near normal precipitation for Oklahoma, with leaning below average precipitation in the Panhandle for this coming week. Thank you for watching your weekly Mesonet Weather Report.
Hello and welcome to the Market Monitor. I'm John Michael Riley, OSU Ag Economist. It's been a while since we last visited, but a great time to do this as we're coming off the heels of a brand new report from the United States Department of Agriculture. We got a number of reports on a week ago to tail end of last week. We'll start with the USDA World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates report, a report that I would say the market viewed mostly as neutral, although there were some revisions in that report. We had a lot of big surprises in the August report that weren't necessarily seen in this most recent September report. Looking at corn, we'll start there, 186.7 bushels per acre national yield. The trade was looking for that to be a little bit lower, and I think there is still an expectation that that is going to drop. But as we recall back to August, a big jump in that yield for corn. It came down a little bit this month relative to August, and I think that it is expected that that's going to continue to fall given where we're seeing weather and moisture conditions across most of the major corn growing region. Soybeans, 53.5 bushels per acre, right in line with what trade was expecting. And I think there is still, for soybeans, a thought that is going to continue to decline. USDA is a little hesitant. They want to see more actual results before they start publishing any adjustments major adjustments to what they're reporting. Looking here at Oklahoma, corn yield estimate at 130 bushels per acre and soybeans 29 bushels per acre. The corn estimate is right in line with where USDA had Oklahoma pegged in August, and the soybean yield is 4 bushels per acre higher than that August report. So a slight adjustment up for Oklahoma with regard to soybeans, and again that has a lot to do with where we're seeing condition ratings and some of the preliminary yield results coming in as harvest is slowly starting up. If there was a surprise in the report, it was the corn acreage number. Again, in August, a big adjustment on corn acreage relative to the June survey, and we saw more revision to corn in this September report. A lot of that coming in from Farm Service Agency data that is actually being reported. So this is a new way that USDA is bringing information into these numbers, and so we started that last year. This is the second year, and this is the first year of those two that we're really seeing some major adjustments. To close out the World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates report, ending stocks for corn, 2.11 billion bushels, for soybeans, 300 million bushels, and both of those were higher than what we were thinking was going to happen. But again, it had a lot to do with the expectation that yield was going to be a little bit lower for both of those, and then also going back to that corn acreage number. So all of that combined, we've got more. We're expected to have more corn and soybeans in the bins at the end of the marketing year than was anticipated. Well, to wrap things up, harvest is slowly starting across most of the U.S. Still certainly getting there with regard to how our summer crops here in Oklahoma. But we'll continue to check that progress as we continue to visit. Until next time, this has been John Michael Riley with the Market Monitor.
Good morning, Oklahoma. Welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. Our topic this week is estimating how much hay we're going to need to take cows through the winter. There's really three things that we want to assess here that's going to help us plan and have the right amount of hay inventory on hand as we move forward. First one is the size of our cows. Why is that important? Different size cows are going to require a different intake of forage dry matter. If we've got a 1,000-pound cow herd, they're going to eat about 26 pounds of forage dry matter a day. If we've got cows that weigh 1,400 pounds, it's going to be closer to 36.5 pounds of forage dry matter a day. So we want to know what our cows weigh. Second important thing we want to take into account is what is our cow inventory. We're projecting that out into how many cows are going to be calving next spring. So now's the time of the year we're probably preg checking, maybe selling older cull cows or opens. So cow inventory becomes important. And then the third thing we need to consider is how long do we expect to be feeding forage to cows? Now this year is unique. We've had a good summer. We've got a lot of standing forage around Oklahoma, and maybe that amount of time is a little bit shorter than what we have expected in some of the years past. But the amount of time we're going to be spending cows comes into play as well. So we take all three of those things into account. We take, for example, if we own 100 cows that weigh 1,400 pounds, we expect each cow to be consuming about 36.4 pounds of forage dry matter as we get into that feeding season. That is around 3,650 pounds of forage dry matter a day we're going to have to feed in the form of hay. When we get to that point of thinking about hay, all hay that we roll out isn't necessarily going to be consumed. Certain amounts going to be stepped on, laid on, it's going to have fecal material or urine on it. There's also going to be a certain amount of spoilage in each bale that we feed. Here we want to take into account, is this year's hay? There's probably a lot less spoilage in a bale, or is it hay that has been carried over from years past? Either way we go about that, let's just round that 3,640 pounds that we know we're going to consume every day up to about 4,000 pounds a day. Take that number of cows into account, take the amount of time that we're going to feed them into account, and it gives us a feel for how many tons of hay we need to have on hand going into hay feeding season. Final thought when we think about that hay inventory that we're going to need is we actually want to take into account how much tonnage of hay rather than by the bale. If we can ever buy hay on a ton basis, that is definitely the way to go, because we're figuring in how much inventory of hay we need on a ton or per pound basis. If we don't have the opportunity to do that, we need to weigh enough of that hay that we've got on inventory to get a pretty accurate assessment of what each one of those bales weigh, and then again, take that into account relative to the amount of spoilage we expect or see in each one of those bales. I hope this helps. It's a good time of the year to be securing that hay inventory for winter, and as always, thanks for joining us on Cow-Calf Corner.
We're here at the Oklahoma State Fair with Dr. Liberty Galvin, our OSU Extension weed scientist. And today you are helping lead the wheat demonstration. So let's pretend that I know nothing about wheat in Oklahoma and I'm just here at the State Fair. What can I learn today? Walk me through this.
Okay, so my favorite fun fact when people come up and ask me about wheat is I tell them that wheat is the #1 row crop grown here in Oklahoma. Behind you is actually a board of fun facts, but $8.2 billion is what the commodity price of wheat sold for in 2022. So lots of agricultural money coming in and out of that crop.
We think a lot about wheat as, you know, from a consumer point of view for our cereal and our cinnamon rolls and our bread and our sandwiches and all that. But that cattle industry part that integrates in, that's what you're talking about, that you're kind of explaining to the general public out here too.
Yeah, it's a very unique aspect of Oklahoma wheat production. And many of our colleagues on the Oklahoma Wheat Commission, which all of this was brought to you today by the Oklahoma Wheat Commission, they are also, many of them, dual purpose producers. So I think it brings a lot of creativity into wheat production, a lot of resilience because they can pivot depending on the weather or the commodity prices, which were very difficult to navigate this year. So it's a fun environment to be in because you kind of have to keep on your toes, but it's a resilient crop and it's a multi-generational crop.
It also broadens the science too, right? Which is where your eyes really light up. Yeah.
I love coming to the State Fair because this is a great opportunity to just show people, like, this is where your food comes from.
Exactly.
You know? I eat bread every day.
Exactly.
And I eat Oklahoma grown wheat every day in my bread.
Well, let me get, looks like this is some big country wheat, right?
So here we have a bag of wheat from Oklahoma Foundation Seed. This is what it looks like after it's been milled. It's not green anymore, as you can see that. It looks like wheat berries from cereal. So we're gonna put it in the top here of this mill.
See, I didn't even know where to put it.
That's okay. And then it's a crank, so it's kind of hard to operate, but I'll hold it here. You got this, Lyndall. Look at you making that pancake. You'll have a loaf of bread before you know it.
Yeah, what, in a couple more hours?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you can stop whenever you want because it actually takes a long time
To get through all of that.
this into this. Yeah,
And you it's like kind of a good cardio workout too, isn't it?
it is.
Right?
I have to stand here and be strong, and you have to crank, and it's surprising to people the amount of power that is required to do this process. And I think when we think about agriculture, we have this image of large machinery, but we don't understand the cost of like physically operating that machinery.
Right.
So I hope people and their kids walk away from this demonstration having a little bit more appreciation for the time and energy required to bring you that beautiful loaf of bread.
And what it takes just to get a little bitty bit in our tray, much less a little sample bag of flour, or what we just walk into the grocery store anytime and get what we need, and it's already done.
Yeah.
Finished.
Swipe that loaf off the shelf, and you would never think about this is where it started.
Right. Well, great demonstration, Liberty. Thanks to you and your grad students for being out here, and good chatting with you. And I'm sure we will be talking to you again very soon out in the wheat field.
Yes, I'm sure we will.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That'll do it for our show this week at the Oklahoma State Fair. A reminder, you can see SUNUP anytime on our website, follow us on social media, and stream us anytime at youtube.com/SUNUPTV. We leave you today from the fair with some great images captured by our chief photographer, Mitchell Alcala, all week at the State Fair. And we'll see you next time at SUNUP.